is WACC minus G. Since the long-term growth rate is 6%, 12% minus 6% is 6%, which is, so you get 40.02, which is the free cash flow. I'm sorry, no. You find the present value of the first 5 years of cash flows, which is given by these numbers, and then you need to find out the cash flow in the 6th year. Okay. Now for that, what do? We take the 5th year's cash flow, multiply it with 1 plus the growth rate, but we use the 6% growth rate, and then you discount it by WACC minus G, which is the 0.06, and then we find the present value. So essentially, by adding the present value of the terminal value and the present value of cash flows, you get what is called the enterprise value. So here the enterprise value, and then you subtract the market value of debt and preferred stock or preference shares, and then you get the value of common equity divided by the number of shares outstanding. You get the price of the share of stock, $9.90. Now once again, what is the problem with this approach? Here we have done a simple valuation of a target company. What this example ignores is how would the cash flows of the target company be impacted by the management of the acquired. That is very important, right? This is, you're looking at it as a standalone entity, but obviously the acquiring company is going to add value to the target company post acquisition. So we need to capture that. Okay, so this ignores that. The other approach is what we call as the comparable multiples approach. The PE or price by EBITDA and price per sales, price cash flow, and so on. Now, what is this approach is also used to get a sense. But do you see any problems with any of these? Price to earnings or price to sales and price to cash flow and so on. Supposing if you're using this for valuation purposes, do you see any problem with that?
Yes, it's a problem because the denominator, the cash flow, sales, EBITDA and earnings, they will also get impacted by the acquiring companies. The advantage of synergy and other things they will come.
Sure.
So you cannot use the historical data.
That is true. In addition to that's absolutely right. In addition to that, supposing if I'm using, supposing I determine the P ratio for 5 companies in a certain industry.
Comparable firms may not exist.
Comparable firms may not exist, and also, this approach will tell you whether stock A is undervalued or overvalued relative to stock B, but it doesn't tell you what the intrinsic value of the stock is. Intrinsic value you can get only with the DCF approach. Okay. So this is the point. The DCF value does not take into account any potential improvement as a result of the change in the management. Okay. So we need to identify potential sources of value creation before we actually get down to the evaluation process.
Potential source of value exactly refers.
Which one? That is, for example, supposing like as I mentioned earlier, supposing the target company has got a very good distribution network in a certain part of the world where you don't have much of a presence. Now that is a potential source of value because that distribution channel can be used to push your products also, you meaning the acquiring company's products also. Yeah, so that would be a source of value. Okay, when will an acquisition create value? What are the requirements? One is if there is going to be an increase in cash flow generated by the target firm's assets, raising the growth rate, okay, and lower the cost of capital. When any of these things happen, we can say that the acquisition will create value. So, Actually, when a target company is poorly managed, there is greater scope to justify the acquisition because you can try to bring about an improvement in the firm post-acquisition that will result in value creation. So here I have said that the only types of merger that are likely to create lasting value are horizontal and vertical, not conglomerate. Because can you tell me the reason for that? I mean, why? If you look at the track record of M&As, the horizontal and vertical acquisitions have a much higher degree of success than conglomerate acquisitions. What is the reason for that?
The multiplier effect of those compared to the other.
Okay.
The valuation in both the companies.
Okay. Because see, for example, if you take horizontal, okay, what is horizontal? Basically for an expanding market share, which as we discussed earlier translates into greater pricing power and so forth. And you know the business, it is an extension of your own business, right? Vertical can be of two types, as you know, backward and forward. Backward is when you acquire, you get greater control over your supply chain, and forward is when you get greater control over your distribution. Okay, so the chances of creating value through these two types are much greater than conglomerate. All right, because say for conglomerate, first of all, there is no proper fit. Secondly, you don't have expertise in that business. Thirdly, it is questionable whether your management talent that you have will be able to effectively manage the acquired firm. All right, and sometimes you may not just understand the business at all, and there might be cultural issues that could negatively impact on the outcome. Okay, so this completes this section. Now I presume that all of you got the handout, so I'd like you to take a look at it. So, yes?
Like you said, so discounted cash flow technique does not take into account the impact that the acquiring improvement.
Yeah.
But how do you account for it mathematically to come out a conclusion that value is created?
Exactly, that's what we're going to see in this example. Okay, now let me set the stage for you. There are two companies that we're going to talk about right now. Both are in the hand tools business. Okay, one company specializes in tools for the consumer market. The other one specializes in hand tools for the commercial market. So we are going to see when one company acquires the other, what happens. There is a group called the strategic planning group. Now the strategic planning group usually comprises of executives from production, from marketing, from all aspects of the business. They are the ones who will come up with, try to quantify the value creation when you take over the management of the acquired firm. So this group has recommended that TD acquire another company called Skill Tools. Now, some of the characteristics of this Skill Tools is the fact that it was founded by a family which still controls 20% of the outstanding stock, and they specialize in tools primarily for the commercial sector. Now, you're the CEO, right? So what is your objective? Your objective is ultimately this deal should create value for your shareholders. As a CEO, you have that responsibility to ensure that. All right? So, and you have to make a call on how much you're going to pay for this acquisition. Any changes to DD's cash flows as a result of the acquisition. So there are two aspects to this.
Basically, incremental impact of
Exactly.
the merger.
Yes, because the incremental cash flows you have to evaluate, right? And then apart from that, there might be some non-operational assets of the target company and liabilities that you must include in your analysis. Now, this process, once you complete this process, you will be able to determine not only what is the maximum price you can afford to pay, but in addition to that, you will also be able to determine what should be your opening bid. So I'm going to walk you through this example now. And obviously you want to avoid overpaying, okay, because then you get into this winner's curse syndrome where you end up with a successful acquisition, but you have paid so much that even if you achieve synergies, the synergies are more than offset by the price you have paid. Okay, so let's first look at what is DD's growth strategy. Okay, it is based on two pillars. First is innovation, second is geographic growth. So this has been this company's guiding characters and principles. Alright, so any acquisition undertaken by DD has to either enhance the product portfolio of DD or it should provide DD access to new markets. This has been the company's principle before embarking on any acquisition. So let's see whether there is a proper strategic fit between ST and DD. Okay, now DD operates primarily in North America, some presence in South America. ST has a strong presence in Western Europe, but they also have a very strong distribution network in Western Europe, where DD doesn't have much of a presence. Okay. So, therefore, from this you can conclude that this acquisition is consistent with DD's strategy of getting into new markets. So what are the sources of value? Right? As I mentioned to you, DD is strong in the consumer market, ST is strong in the industrial market. Another big source of value is the fact that ST has been poorly managed. The average industry growth rate in the hand tools business is 6%, but the revenue growth of ST has been only 3.5%. Whenever you have a scenario like this, what is the implication of that? The implication is there is a lot of scope for improvement, And cost structure of ST is very high. And the ST produces too many products. That is, one of the first things that DD should do is to rationalize the product portfolio. Get rid of some of the products, streamline the product offering. Okay? So that will help and then bring down the cost structure also.
So how do we decide what is too many?
No, that's a call that, because you have to identify what are the different segments in this business. And do you have a presence in each of the segments? You don't have to have multiple product offerings in each segment. You have to have some presence in each segment.
Capability of the workforce.
I'm sorry?
And so the capability is inside of the company.
Yes. So restructuring ST's product portfolio would be very helpful. And obviously, once you rationalize the product portfolio, it helps to reduce the working capital needs as well. Then there is a lot of scope for, since they are both in the same line of business, there is scope for cost savings due to overlapping functions. Okay, what are the value drivers here? Okay, two categories. Okay, one is the top line growth, greater revenue growth, and also reduction in cost of goods sold, COGS. SG&A is selling, general and administrative expenses and working capital, resulting from increased efficiency of ST under DD's management. So if DD takes over ST, the benefit resulting in, it will be a very beneficial thing because it will result not only in greater revenue growth, but in reduction in costs.
SG&A is
selling, general and administrative expenses. And not only will this be, by leveraging ST's European distribution network, DD can now establish a presence for its products in Western Europe, where right now it doesn't have much of a presence, at this point.
vice versa also.
Yes, vice versa also. Okay. But what we are more focused on in this is, whether we should go forward with this deal, how much should we pay for ST?
The impact of that can also be significant.
Sure. You can extend this. In this example, we are not going to get into that, but then you can also try to quantify that. All right. Now, table 1 tells you that that if DD takes over ST, what are the benefits that will come out from that? What are the implications of this? What we have seen here is if you look at 2009 revenue, we have said that it's going to remain roughly at about 2008 level, which is on line 10, okay? Because of the reduction in the number of products. See, one of the first things which DD is going to do is reduce the number of products of ST. So the revenue we are going to assume is going to remain, see, right now this is the valuation of ST under DD's management, alright? So the number of products will be reduced, therefore revenue will remain about the same. Now, whenever you do valuation, it is always better to be extremely conservative. And so that is the reason why in this exercise, we will be very, very conservative when it comes to assumptions. So what we have assumed here is from 2010 onwards, we have assumed that the revenue of ST will grow at the industry average rate of 6%. You may be able to raise it beyond more than 6%, but let's just be conservative, 6%. And cost of goods sold, if you see currently cost of goods sold is 67.5%, okay, now of revenue. But then we expect to bring it down to 67 in 2009, and then we say that 65% will taper off. We are not saying that you may be able to lower it below 65%, but we are not taking that, we are being conservative.
65% is the industry average from where the figure is going.
Which one? No, it is not the industry average, but it is just a conservative figure saying that, because you might be able to get it down to below 65%. But you're saying that once you reach 65% COGS, okay, cost of goods sold as a percentage of revenue,
You have brought out the cost.
group of the acquiring company.
Remember, it's like the most extra agencies that existed in the one company.
Mhm.
And bringing down from 67 to 65%.
Mhm.
Very minimal.
That's right.
Not harnessing the total advantage. Secondly, if you are that conservative, probably you miss the chance of acquiring the company.
No, we'll see that if you, by being so conservative, is the deal still worth pursuing? Okay, if it turns out that you're really good at